This is a Fletcher Free Library original production. Hey friends, it's Kate from the Fletcher Free Library, and I'm back again today with another STEAM activity. You're probably wondering why I'm wearing my unicorn horn. Well, it's Fancy Friday, so it's an excuse to get a little bit dressed up. And I've been doing book drop for Burlington schools. The library is giving away free books to kids every week at different meal sites. And my meal sites are at the North Avenue Alliance Church and Sustainability Academy. So if you're out and about, you'll see me there. But I had to go into work to get some books to give away. So while I was there, I grabbed my unicorn horn so I could have the real thing. The other one was fine, the paper one, but this is the one that really makes me happy. So I'm gonna wear it today because we're making Wacky Cake. And Wacky Cake is kind of a neat cake. So it's really old-fashioned. It's been around since the late 1700s during pioneer days, when you didn't always have access to all the ingredients to make a regular cake. And it was also really popular during some of the wars in the early 1900s because there weren't always eggs and milk and butter and things like that to make cakes. So this cake doesn't have any eggs, it doesn't have any butter, it doesn't have any milk. But it's super fun because it has a great chemical reaction that we're going to learn about and we're going to experiment with a little before we make our cake. And at the end, we actually get a cake, which is the best part. And to make it even more fun, we're going to make it a funfetti cake, which means it's going to have sprinkles in it. So your teachers are going to be happy because this is math, because it's measuring, and science, because we're doing chemical reactions in one lesson. Okay, so you can, like I said before, check those off your block. And we're just gonna have a funfetti Friday. So let's get cooking. So let's consult the list of things to do today. First, we're going to talk about science, and we're going to go outside and do a fun experiment and maybe blow something up. I mean, just maybe. We're going to get into the recipe, read over the recipe, make sure we have all the ingredients and tools we need to make the recipe. We're going to make the cake and bake it, and then we're going to come back later, make some frosting, frost the cake, and hopefully you're going to do these things too. And I know my family is going to eat the cake tonight after dinner. I don't know about your family, but I hope that's what you're doing too. So let's talk science. So if you're anything like me, you like your cakes to be light and fluffy, and chemical reactions take place in all kinds of cakes that you're making. So this isn't a new thing, but the ingredients are a little bit different, and it's going to give us an opportunity to play with the same ingredients that go in the cake and see what actually happens. So in this cake, because there's no butter or eggs or milk, we have to make a chemical reaction with other ingredients. So we are going to use baking soda, which is pretty normal for a cake, but we're going to use vinegar and mix that with the baking soda, and that's going to provide the chemical reaction that makes the cake rise up and be light and fluffy. And probably you're thinking to yourself, baking soda and vinegar, what do I know about baking soda and vinegar? When they get together, what happens? You might be thinking about those volcano experiments. So we're going to play with that, because when you mix baking soda and vinegar together, you get a reaction which is an explosion, right? An explosion of a gas. And that gas is carbon dioxide. Yeah. Sort of like the last video we did when we talked about carbon dioxide that you put into soda, and carbon dioxide comes out of our body when we exhale. So this same gas is made when you mix baking soda and vinegar together. So I'm gonna bring together the stuff for the experiment, and we'll take it outside and we'll try and conduct a little explosion. So come right back. So I've got some stuff together. I'm gonna walk you through the setup, and then we're gonna take it outside. You notice I pulled out my safety glasses. I have them stuck here on my head so I don't forget them later. When we blow things up, we protect our eyes, okay? And remember, we're not eating or putting our fingers in our mouth because, you know, we're doing chemistry here, so we're not baking. And I guess we shouldn't put our fingers in our mouth when we're baking, maybe afterwards, when we're licking the bowl. Okay, so we are going to make a chemical reaction with the same two ingredients that are going to be in our cake, and that is vinegar. This is just, this one is cider vinegar, but you could use any vinegar. It could be red vinegar, it could be balsamic vinegar, it could be white vinegar. This is what I have at my house. And some baking soda, not baking powder, which is similar, but not the same thing. So baking soda, vinegar. And we don't have to be terribly precise here. Because this isn't going in our cake. This is just a simple experiment. So I'm not even gonna use a measuring cup for this, but I am gonna use one of my canning jars, and probably yours at home if you have them, have measuring on the side. So I'm gonna put in a half cup of vinegar into my jar here. And again, I don't have to be very precise. So I've got, this is not half of this cup, but it's the measurement a half cup. Okay, so we've got a half cup of that. I'm going to put it aside for a minute. And then I'm going to make a baking soda packet. I'm going to use just a little piece of paper towel, not the whole thing. And I'll move this so you can see. And I'm going to take 4 teaspoons of baking soda. But I'm not going to use a standard measure teaspoon. I'm not going to use one of these. I'm just going to use a spoon that I would maybe have soup with. So I'm just gonna take out 4 spoonfuls like that, and I'm gonna put them right in the middle of the paper. 1, 2, 3, 4, and I bet you're wondering why I'm doing this. And the reason is because I want to control when the reaction happens. I don't want it to happen in my kitchen. Believe me, once you see this, you'll know why. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my little piece of paper with baking soda on it, and I'm going to fold one side in and fold the other side in, and then fold the 2 ends in. And then I just have a cute little packet of baking soda. Okay? I'm going to put that aside. And in my jar, or in my plastic bag, so I'm going to use this is just like a little resealable plastic bag. I'm going to pour my vinegar like that, and I'm going to take my little packet and I'm going to hold it at the top with my hands so it doesn't fall in, and I'm going to seal up my bag. Sometimes it takes a little bit. And then I'm going to test the seal because it's important that it's well closed. And I'm going to hold this here the whole time because I don't want my baking soda to hit my vinegar yet, because that's when the reaction is going to happen. And we're going to watch what's going to happen in our cake. But we're going to take it outside to do it because it could be messy. So we're all ready. We've got a packet of baking soda and vinegar in the bottom. And now I need to find my clicker so I can turn off my video. Oh, there it is, underneath the towel. And we're going to take this outside. So I'm outside now. I have my safety glasses on, or you could put sunglasses on. I've got my bag with my baking soda packet and my vinegar at the bottom. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to shake it up and make sure the vinegar and the baking soda get together before I move away. Okay, and then I want you to watch closely to see what happens. Okay, it's starting to go. Do you see it? Do you see it? Do you see it? Watch. Boom! Sorry, Bernie, I know that was a little scary. Let's get closer. So you can hear the carbon dioxide gas coming out. Wow. It blew up that bag. That's going to happen in your cake. Let's go inside and talk about it a little more. So that was really exciting. So you noticed when the baking soda mixed together with the vinegar and the chemical reaction started to take place, the gas was released, and that's what made the bag blow up and then pop open. So your cake is not going to explode, but the baking soda and the vinegar, once they're mixed together in our bowl, are going to start reacting. And then when we put it in the oven, the heat of the oven is going to make those bubbles of carbon dioxide expand, and that's what's going to give us a nice, light, fluffy cake. It's pretty amazing. Would have been fun to be alive in the 1700s and figuring this all out, how this all worked, before everybody had, you know, textbooks or cookbooks or the internet to look up all this information. So let's go over the recipe. I'm going to share the recipe with you, and I'm going to go through and read it first because it's really important to make sure you have all the materials together before you start. It happens to a lot of people that they get really excited and then they find out they're missing something partway through. So let's do a quick read. So we need some flour. I've got that. Sugar, got that. Baking soda, we already used it. And some salt. For wet ingredients, we have some vanilla, got that. Almond extract, which is delicious, but you don't have to have it. Vegetable oil, we've got that. Cider vinegar, used it, and water. And at the very end, we're going to use sprinkles to put into our batter to make it funfetti. So we have everything we need to make this cake. And we're going to need a bowl, something to mix it in, though in the recipe, they tell you to mix it in the actual pan. But I did that when I was testing this out, and I thought it was really messy. So I prefer to mix it well in a bowl and then put it in the pan. You could use a wooden spoon or a whisk. This is to scrape it out. So those are going to be how I mix the cake. And then I've got some measuring cups that we're going to need for measuring the ingredients. And I've got some for the small ingredients, the teaspoons and tablespoons. So I'm going to grease the pan and get it ready. And here's my pan. It's a small pan, 8 by 8. So it's just going to be perfect for our small family, though I don't think it's going to last for very long. And I have some cooking spray. You could just use oil and a paper towel. I'm going to spray it over the sink over here so I don't get it all over my stuff. So I'm just going to lean over here and spray it. And I don't know if you can see, but there's a little bit of oil all over the pan so it doesn't stick once we're trying to get the cake out. And the final thing you need to do to get started is turn on your oven to 350 degrees. And while I get the materials together, I'm going to turn on my oven and then we'll get started making the cake. So when we were doing our experiment outside, do you remember I said we didn't have to be that precise about measuring things? But now we're baking, and baking does take a lot of precision. We want it to be exact because that can really screw up a recipe. If you've ever had cakes or cookies that didn't come out right, the likelihood is the measuring was wrong. So we're going to start with our dry ingredients, and then we'll move on and add in our wet ingredients. So I'm going to need my bowl, and my dry ingredients are flour. I need, let's see, 1.5 cups of flour. So here is my tub of flour. And I'm going to show you some tricks because I do a lot of cooking and baking. So I'm going to fluff up my flour a little bit so it's not too heavy, because when flour sits around it settles. So I fluffed it up a little so it's got lots of air in it. And I'm going to get my 1 cup measuring cup, and I'm going to spoon it into, instead of taking my cup and pushing it in, that'll get more flour than I need. I'm going to use my little scoop, and I'm going to scoop it into my measuring cup. And I'm going to scoop too much See how it's over the top? That's too much flour. And then I'm going to use my little scoop to just push right across the top and make it level. See, measuring cups have a nice even surface at the top that you can scrape off all the extra. So that's 1 cup, and I'm going to stick it in my bowl. And then I need a 1/2 cup more. So I'm not going to use this and eyeball it. I'm going to use an actual 1/2 cup measure. I'm going to do the same thing, and I'm going to spoon it in. And then I'm going to scrape it off. So see, I have too much. I'm going to scrape it off right across. Nice and level. I'm going to stick that in. So that's all the flour I need. I'm going to stick this back in and put it away. Where's my top? There it is. We are done with flour. And I need, how much sugar? I need 1 cup of sugar. That should be easy. Now sugar, you don't have to worry about as much because there's not a lot of air space in there. Sugar is a lot coarser and it just settles down. So I'm going to stick my actual scoop in there and grab my sugar. But I am going to make sure I have a level. See, I have too much sugar in here. I'm going to do the same thing, and I'm going to scrape it across the top. So I have 1, oh, yeah, I just had I thought maybe I was going to put in too much sugar, so I checked my recipe again. So it's 1 cup of sugar. That is kind of a lot of sugar, but it's a delicious cake. So we've got a cup of sugar, and I'm going to put that in my bowl. Okay, so those are my 2 dry ingredients so far. Now we're moving on to baking soda. Looks like this, baking soda, and it says we need 1 teaspoon. So I'm going to find, I have these cute little teaspoons here, and here's what I'm going to do. See how it has this little ridge here? I'm going to dip it in and fill it up, and wow, I have way too much. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to do the same thing I did with my measuring cups. I'm just going to scrape it along the top, and now look, it's perfect. I didn't even have to use anything else. I just used the container. I think it's meant to do that. So that's 1 teaspoon of baking soda. That's going to go in with my dry ingredients, and I need some salt. Oh, forgot my salt. Let me go grab my salt. Here it is, and I need 1/2 teaspoon. So this one has, I can do different things on it. So I'm going to switch it down to 1/2 teaspoon. And this one I'm just going to be, I always put a little less salt than I need. I'm going to push a little into the sink. But it seems funny to put salt into sweet things, but you need to balance the sweet, and the salt brings out lots of flavors. So the salt's going to go in your bowl too. So I don't need these anymore. And I'm going to take my whisk and I'm going to mix them together. So it's just flour and sugar and baking soda and salt in here. That's it. And now that I have that in there, I'm going to make 3 holes. I'm going to use my scraper, and I'm just going to make 3 holes. I'm going to make a hole for the vinegar, a hole for the water, and a hole for our flavors, the vanilla and almond. Okay? And the reason you make the holes is you don't want them to get together yet. So I'm going to put all 3 ingredients here, dump it in, and then we're going to mix it. I mean, I guess you could put them all in at once. It would probably be fine. But it's kind of the fun part of this wacky cake is how it's made. So we need 2.5 teaspoons of vanilla. And this is our vanilla. Love vanilla. I'm going to smell it. I don't know if you've ever put it in your mouth and tasted it just by itself, but it doesn't taste very good. But it smells delicious. So I'm going to get 2.5 teaspoons. So that's the small one. And what was I going to say? We have to be precise with this too. So I'm going to just do it very slowly and make sure I get all the way to the top. 1. I'm going to pour it in one of my holes. 2, and then I'm going to do a half. So I'm going to switch this. Oh, there's my oven's ready. 2.5. other half of one. Okay, and this one actually asks for a little bit of almond extract, the same, a half, which is a small amount. And if you don't have that at home, that's fine, but it's delicious. It's nice in a vanilla cake. So I'm gonna put the almond extract in here as well. Oh. An alarm is going off in my kitchen for no apparent reason. Let me turn that off. Well, at least it wasn't the smoke alarm, because that happens every once in a while too. Okay, so we've got the almond and the vanilla extracts in there. We also need oil. So we need vegetable oil. So the vegetable oil is 5 tablespoons, and this is the big one. This is a tablespoon. Actually, 3 of those little ones fit in one of these tablespoons. And you have to be really careful because the little t means teaspoon, which is the smaller measure, and the big T means tablespoon, which is the larger measure. That's how I remember it. So I need 5 of those, and I need to put them in a second hole. So let me see if I show you my hole here. Can you see? Can you see? Oh, yep. I've got some in one hole. I'm gonna pick another hole for my canola oil. 1 all the way to the top. 2 all the way to the top. 3 to the top. 4, 5. A lot of cakes use butter, and they cream the butter and the sugar together really well, but not in this cake. So we've got vanilla almond oil. We need apple cider vinegar, right? That's gonna make the chemical reaction, and 1 cup of water. So we still need some vinegar. Let's see, where did I put the vinegar? Ooh, I moved the vinegar. Okay, so we need 1 teaspoon of this. So that's not very much, but that's what's gonna make this chemical reaction. So I'm gonna stick it in. And then we need 1 cup of water. And do you remember we talked about using these wet measuring cups and how important it is to look from below? Okay, so you want the water to go right up to the line, and then usually above the line you see like a little bit of roundy water. And that is, do you remember that we said that water has a lot of surface tension and likes to stick together? Kind of like when you put the water on the penny and it mounded on the top, it does the same thing in here. So you want to make sure that you go right to the bottom of that mound when you measure. I'll see if I can show you on camera. So I need 1 cup. I'm going to go over to the sink and fill it up, and then I'm going to check it to see. I'm going to put it on the counter and lean down. Oh, not quite enough. I'm going to put a little bit more in. I'm going to bend down while I do it though. Oh yeah, perfect. I don't know if you're going to be able to see this on camera, especially now that I'm moving. Yeah, probably can't see it that well. Anyway, you'll have to take my word for it, but you should look when you're measuring to see that little bubble of how the water sticks together. It's pretty fascinating. Pour it right in, and now we can mix it together. This is not a difficult cake. We don't need to use beaters or anything. You can see it's starting to come together already. We want to get the lumps out. So it doesn't have to be perfect, but we don't want it to be lumpy. So I'm gonna make sure I get everything off the bottom. So I'm looking to see that all my ingredients, you can take a look. Looks pretty good. Didn't take long at all, really. It was like 30 seconds. And then our final ingredient are sprinkles. And we need 2 tablespoons of sprinkles. So here's 1. I'm gonna put a little extra because I really like sprinkles. And 2. And then I'm gonna bang it because my thing was wet, so it's sticking. And then I'm going to mix those sprinkles in. And we are good to go. And you heard that my oven was hot, so that's ready to go. I'll bang this off. I'm going to put this in and make sure it all gets in there. I'm going to pour it. Then I'm going to scrape it. It's kind of a thin batter, you'll notice. Got it all in there. Looks perfect. Okay, it's ready to go in the oven. So this is going to go in for 35 minutes. Depends on your oven, but you're going to, about 30 minutes, you're going to start looking, and you're going to want to touch the top and see if it bounces back. And if it does, that means it's ready. Or you could stick a toothpick in, and if it comes out with no cake on it, you're good to go. So I'm going to stick this in the oven. Okay, friends, we're back. We have a beautiful cake getting cool. You just saw a picture of that, and we're ready to make some buttercream frosting. So I've already got some dairy-free butter in here. So it looks like this. We're gonna make this vegan because our cake is vegan. It doesn't have any butter or eggs or milk in it. So we're gonna do the same thing, our frosting, so everybody in my house can eat it. So the important thing with any kind of butter is that it's soft. This one you can see is really soft in here, and I've squished it around a little. And we're not gonna use the beaters. We're gonna do this by hand. So I'm giving you the recipe, but you need a ½ cup of butter. Okay, that looks like this. You need some vanilla extract. In this case, we want a ½ teaspoon. And we also want some, if you've got it, almond extract. So a ½ teaspoon of each. We're also going to put in 2½ to 3 cups of powdered sugar, and then some splashes of milk just to make it stirrable. So I'm going to start by putting in the extracts and the almond extract. And then I'm going to put in some of the sugar just to get started. And then I'm going to add it little by little. So this doesn't have to be as precise as the cake, because frosting kind of does its own thing. So I'm going to do it right over the bowl. I've almost got a full cup. So I'm going to put a cup, I'm going to put 2 cups to get started and then see what I need. Again, this is not as precise as baking. The frosting is not as, just don't need the precision. Okay, so let's get started. And I'm going to go nice and slow because powdered sugar gets everywhere. So I'm going to stir it up. I'm going to stir for a couple minutes. I'm going to add a little splash of milk, and then I'm going to stop the video and we'll come back in a minute and finish it up together. So this took me about a minute of stirring. It's pretty thick and creamy. You could use beaters if you want, but I didn't feel I needed to. It wasn't that much frosting. So I've got my cake here, ready to go. I'm going to plop some frosting right in the middle of it. And then I'm going to use a knife or an offset spatula to frost it around. I mean, the key to this really simple frosting is just that your butter is warm. Not melted, but just soft and room temperature. Otherwise, it's just impossible to mix up. So you can see how easy this is spreading. It's gonna be delicious. Look at that, easy peasy. Ta-da! And all it needs is more funfetti. So let's give it a generous sprinkle for the top. And what do you think? We made a beautiful cake with science. So I'll give you an update maybe in my next video of how delicious it tasted. In the meantime, let me know how yours comes out. I will post some social media connections, and you can send me a picture, send an email, post it online. I'd love to see what you're doing. Have a great day. Happy, fabulous, funfetti Friday.